Hello, everyone. It really feels like one day we'd barely heard the term generative AI, and then boom, the next day it was just everywhere in the news, in our emails, and maybe most importantly, in the hands of our students. And honestly, it can feel a little overwhelming, right? So, the whole goal of this explainer is to cut through all that noise. We're going to demystify this technology and really explore what it means for us as educators. Okay, let's dive in. To get a real sense of just how fast this all happened, just look at this number, 100 million. That's how many users a tool called ChatGPT got in just its first 2 months. I mean, that's just staggering. It might be the fastest growing application in history. And what that tells us is that this isn't some niche little trend. No, this is a major, major technological shift, and it's happening right now. So here's our game plan for today. We're going to start with a really simple definition, then take a quick look at its history, peek under the hood to see how it works, and then, and this is the important part, we'll explore why all of this matters for the world our students are getting ready to enter. Of course, we'll also talk about the very valid concerns before looking at what's next. Okay, so first things first. Before we go any further, let's just build a clear, solid foundation for what we're even talking about when we say the words generative AI. Behind all the headlines and the hype, the core idea is actually pretty straightforward. Generative AI is a type of artificial intelligence that doesn't just analyze data that already exists. It actually creates brand new, original content. So think of it less like a calculator and more like a creative partner. You give it an instruction, a prompt, and it can generate an essay, a poem, a piece of art, or even music, all based on the patterns it's learned. Now, while it might feel like this technology just appeared out of thin air, it's really not an overnight revolution. Far from it. The ideas and concepts that power these tools have actually been developing for decades, building on a really long history of research and innovation. You can really see how the puzzle pieces came together over a long period. The journey truly started way back in the 1950s with the first neural networks, which were actually modeled on the human brain. But for a long, long time, progress was pretty slow, mainly limited by computing power. Then you fast forward to 2014, and we get a huge breakthrough in creating realistic images. Then comes 2017, when researchers at Google developed something called the transformer model. And that was the absolute game changer. It was the critical piece of architecture that made today's powerful language models, like ChatGPT, even possible. All right, so we know what it is and a little bit about where it came from. But how does the engine actually run? Let's take a minute and clarify some of the key terms that you've probably been hearing thrown around. So to make sense of all these buzzwords, it really helps to think of them as a hierarchy, or kind of like a set of nesting dolls. At the very top, the biggest doll, you've got artificial intelligence, or AI. That's the whole big field. A piece of that is machine learning, which is all about teaching computers to learn from data. Then a specialized part of that is generative AI, which focuses on creating new data. And finally, inside that, you have large language models, or LMLs. These are the systems like ChatGPT that are experts in understanding and generating human-like text. So, the crucial thing to remember here is that it's not magic, it's a process. And it happens in 3 basic steps. First, an absolutely massive amount of data is collected. We're talking a huge chunk of the internet, books, articles, everything. Second, during what's called a training phase, the model uses machine learning to basically read all of that data and learn the patterns, the relationships, the grammar, the structure within it. Finally, once it's trained, it can use all that learned knowledge to generate completely new, coherent content whenever you give it a prompt. Okay, this is where we really shift gears from the technical stuff to the practical. Because this isn't just an interesting academic exercise. This technology is already out there, right now, reshaping entire industries. It is defining the professional world that our students are going to be graduating into, whether we're ready for it or not. I mean, just take retail. Big companies are using this stuff to write product descriptions, create advertising images, and even let you use an app on your phone to see what a new couch would look like in your own living room. It's already here. Or look at finance. It's being used to analyze millions of transactions to spot and reduce fraud. It's also providing customers with personalized financial guidance right in their banking app. Predicting when you might have a low balance or suggesting you move some money into savings. Manufacturing is seeing some huge changes. Companies are using AI to design and test things like lighter, more efficient vehicle parts. And the results? They can be incredible. By analyzing data from sensors, AI can predict when a machine is about to fail, which has been shown to reduce breakdowns by a staggering 70%. And in healthcare, I mean, the impact is just profound. It's helping design molecular structures for new drugs, which is dramatically speeding up research. It's also being used to analyze medical images, like CT scans, to help doctors spot abnormalities they might have otherwise missed. This isn't science fiction. This is the world we are preparing our students for. Now, of course, it is not all seamless progress and rosy futures. As with any powerful new tool, it is absolutely essential that we talk about the very real challenges and concerns. In fact, acknowledging these limitations is the first step toward using this technology responsibly. And a lot of these concerns are probably going to sound pretty familiar to us in education. There's the huge risk of spreading misinformation with realistic but totally fake content. There are really complex questions around plagiarism and intellectual property. The models can and do hallucinate, which means they confidently just make up false information. And they can reflect and sometimes even amplify the biases that were present in the data they were trained on. This point about misinformation is particularly critical for us. We're already seeing these highly realistic AI-generated videos, they're called deep fakes, being used to spread fake news and propaganda. This presents a completely new and profound challenge for teaching information literacy. So, with all of that in mind, the incredible potential on one hand, and the very serious pitfalls on the other, where do we go from here? What does the road ahead even look like? Well, a recent report from McKinsey put out a prediction that really puts all of this into perspective. They compared two things. First, the median performance of an average human in areas like logical reasoning, creative thinking, and problem solving. And second, the rapidly improving performance of generative AI in those exact same areas. And the year McKinsey predicts the AI will reach that median human level for many of those capabilities is 2030. Just let that sink in. That is not some distant science fiction future. That is right around the corner. That's a world that today's first-year students will be graduating into for the vast majority of their careers. And that brings us to the final and most crucial question of all. You see, it's not really about whether we personally like this technology or whether we prefer the way we've always taught. The question is no longer if our students will use these tools, but how they will use them. So the most important question for us as educators is this: how are we going to prepare the next generation for this future? Thank you.